In 1982, a video game console launched with a sleek futuristic design, advanced analog controls, and an arcade-quality game library that could take on the competition. Let's take a look at the Atari 5200 Super System.
If you think ColecoVision plays all Atari cartridges,
You mean it can't?
here's Pac-Man on ColecoVision. But here's Pac-Man for the Atari 5200 Super System.
Now you're talking.
And it doesn't work on ColecoVision.
But won't their adapter?
It won't play Super System cartridges.
Not pole position?
Not this pole position.
Not Centipede?
Not this Centipede. Only on the Atari 5200 Super System.
But aren't they hard to find?
They're everywhere.
Everywhere?
The Atari 5200 Super System.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of A Look At. And in today's episode of A Look At, we're going to be taking a look at that system right there, the Atari 5200 Super System. We'll be taking a look at the history of the system, what's inside of it, basically what makes it tick. We'll take a 360 tour of the system, just showing you all the ins and outs of the system. Then we'll go ahead and power it up and do some gameplay. I'm going to show some of the launch titles that were on the system. And then after that, we'll do the conclusion where I give my thoughts and opinions and memories of the system from back in the good old 80s. Also, in between each segment, I put in commercials just showing how the system was actually marketed back in the 80s as well. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and take a look.
Arcade players, get ready. The new Atari 5200 Super System is here. With a controller so advanced it plays arcade. Graphics so real it looks arcade. With arcade hits you can't play on any other system. No other home video system can touch it. The new Atari 5200 Super System. It's as good as you are, maybe even better. Next time.
In late 1977, Atari had already been purchased by Warner Communications. Go ahead and click the link above, or I'll post a link below as well, and watch my Atari 2600 A Look At video. It has an in-depth history of Atari from Pong to the Atari 2600. The story of the 5200 starts after that. Nolan Bushnell was still with the company, and Warner Communications had already started the successor of the 2600, and there was actually talks of them discontinuing it. Bushnell disagreed with this, and along with other issues that he had with Warner Communications, he decided to leave the company. That's how I'm going to tell it. Warner would probably tell it a different way, but I'm taking Bushnell's side of this story. Warner started development of the successor to the 2600, but 1977 is known as the year of the personal computer revolution. This is the year that the Apple II, Commodore PET, and the TRS-80 launched, bringing the personal computer to many homes and businesses. Atari had seen this and wanted in on the lucrative personal computing market, so instead of developing the next video game system, they used the technology to develop the Atari 8-bit line of computers. Now at this time, the only real competition that Atari had was the Fairchild Channel F, the Bally Astrocade, and the Magnavox Odyssey 2. But fast forward a couple years, and Mattel had released the Intellivision in 1979, and in 1982, Coleco released the ColecoVision, both of which had add-ons that could play the Atari 2600 cartridges and had superior graphics to the 2600. Atari knew that they had to do something, and they unshelved the console prototype from 1978. They developed it into the Atari Video System X, which a few prototypes were actually made. The name was changed to the Atari 5200. The 5200 was officially launched in November of 1982. Atari had released a decently powerful video game console to compete with the Coleco and Intellivision. However, the timing was completely wrong. The controllers were horrible, and the games were just the same old arcade ports like on the Atari 2600. And it wasn't backwards compatible with the 2600, nor was it compatible with the 8-bit line of computers. And because of this, consumers just couldn't justify the cost of buying a new game console for the same old games but with a little bit better graphics, and of course it had the bad reputation for the controllers as well. After its release, it did sell a few units, but it did not meet Atari's sales expectations. Atari had even gone as far as designing a slim version of the Atari 5200 called the Atari 5200 Junior or the 5100. However, since sales were slow, this project was canceled. A few of those prototypes do exist, and they're out there in the wild as well. And then in 1983, the video game crash came, and sales of the system plummeted, along with the sales of the Atari 2600. Atari discontinued the 5200 in May of 1984, giving it a lifespan of only 18 months. And shortly after this, Warner Communications sold Atari to Jack Tramiel. The 5200 just sold over 1 million units. Although it was a powerful machine, it was not a success for Atari.
What could make the Atari 5200 Super System an even better system?
An adapter for 2600 games.
And now it's here.
So I can play Berserk and Phoenix?
All 2600 and 5200 games. It's the only system that plays everything made for Atari.
Like Kangaroo?
With the best graphics and gameplay.
Centipede?
With our brand new trackball controller.
A trackball, an adapter, plus all Atari games?
What more could you ask for?
Nothing.
It's not for nothing, but how about a $30 rebate and Pac-Man?
Super.
System from Atari.
So let's go ahead and take a look inside of the Atari 5200. As I stated before, it is pretty much the same machine as the 8-bit line of Atari computers, but there are some differences and we'll go over those. Now keep in mind that there's 3 different versions of the motherboard. There's 2 for the 4-controller port 5200s, and then there's 1 for the 2-port, but all of them pretty much have the same chips on them, and there's just slight differences. So we'll start with the CPU. The CPU is a custom MOS technology 6502C running at 1.79 MHz. Then there's the 2 graphics chips on the Atari 5200. The first one being the Antic chip and the second being the GTIA chip. The Antic chip produces the playfield graphics and character sets and transfers its data over to the GTIA chip. The GTIA chip provides color for the playfield graphics and also provides character sprites and missile sprites. The screen resolution was 384 by 240 and there were 14 modes, 6 text modes and 8 graphics modes. With a color palette of 128 or 256 colors, it could support 2 to 16 colors per pixel line and up to 23 colors per pixel line with player, missile, and playfield priority mixing. It could also support up to 8 sprites and horizontal and vertical scrolling. The next chip on the list is the Pokey chip. This is the sound chip of the Atari 5200. It is capable of 4-channel PSG sound. It also handles keyboard scanning, serial I/O, high-resolution interrupt-capable timers, and has a random number generator. The next chips we'll talk about are the RAM chips. It has 8 4516 RAM chips capable of 16 kilobytes per 1 bit, giving the system a total of 16 kilobytes of RAM. The 5200 had a 2 kilobyte onboard BIOS ROM basically handling the startup of the machine until the cartridge ROM took over. This is also where the character set is stored. I'd also like to bring up the differences between the 2-port and the 4-port AV switches. The original 4-port had an AV switch where the power was plugged into it, so there was one single cable going to the Atari to power it and for the RF signal. This box automatically switched over when the Atari was turned on. There have been some horror stories about this AV switch and the power going to it causing electrical hazards and fires, most of which are just rumors. I could not find one instance of a house burning down due to this. Atari did change to a manual switch box on the 2-port model, along with plugging the power into the console itself, thus having 2 wires going to the console, one for power and one for the RF signal. So really the biggest differences between the 8-bit line and the 5200 is the ROM is only 2 kilobytes in the Atari 5200, whereas it's 10 kilobytes in the 8-bit line. Hardware registers were changed between the GTIA chip and the Pokey chip, making the software incompatible between the 2 systems. The 5200 was made to work with only analog controls, whereas the 8-bit line used digital controls. Another really cool tidbit of information is the 5200 power switch is actually computer controlled and is not a manual switch. It is a momentary switch and is connected to a 4013 dual flip-flop IC. I I do believe that this is the first game system to have a computerized power button until the likes of like the PS2 and the Xbox. Pretty advanced for its time.
The most earth-shattering ding-dong. The most realistic joust. Pole position at its best. Only the Atari 5200 Super System plays them. Moon Patrol with arcade graphics. Real sports baseball. You're out. Only on Super System. 2600 games, the adapter plays them all. The Atari 5200 Super System. Its only competition is you.
Alright guys, so let's go ahead and do the tour of the Atari 5200. And as you guys can see here, this is a beast of a machine. It is huge. It's probably one of the biggest video game consoles ever produced. And just to kind of tell you guys, it's bigger than the original Xbox. And for size comparison, here's my hand. And I don't have small hands, guys, so it kind of goes to show you how big this system actually is. But let's go ahead and start the tour here. So first thing, I'm going to go ahead and open this up. This is the actual controller storage right here. So you would put your controllers in here, kind of like this, and then the cable would run around to the side, and then you close your door, and then they could get stored in there. Be careful with this, guys, if you own one of these machines, because that door is very brittle, and say if you don't have your controllers completely flat in there, you can crack it and break it. So just be very careful with that door. A lot of 5200s don't have that door on it anymore, and trying to find a replacement door, I know there's a couple places that do like 3D printed ones, but they're quite expensive. But anyway, this here is your cartridge port here, guys. Your on and off button. This is your power LED indicator right here. Here I have the 2-port model, as you guys can see, so I just have the 2 ports. Now there is the 4-port model, which I don't have, but you could play up to 4 players on that one in certain games. Now on the side of the system here, guys, there's really nothing on the sides, just molded plastic. And on the back here, not much back here either. We do have the power jack there, the channel select switch, and then on the bottom here, if you guys can see, that's where the actual cable, RF cable, comes out. So that's pretty much a tour of the machine here, guys. There's really not much to the 5200 on the outside. Now another thing I did want to go ahead and show you guys are these crappy controllers. These are probably one of the worst video game controllers out there. Now unfortunately for Atari, they thought they had, the next advanced, video game controller with analog controls and this and that. But unfortunately, it didn't work out for them. And that's because these things don't really self-center. Look at that. They stay. So when you're playing a game, you constantly got to try to self-center these things. And they're horrible. Not only that, but the buttons and everything like that, they just are horrible. They get mushy. There's like a little circuit board in here, and then what happens, the traces get broken, and it's just a plastic circuit board, and then like these buttons won't work, and they're real mushy, and the analog sticks just kind of suck. So these controllers are notoriously bad, guys, but there are retro kits for these to retrofit them with new materials. So I might try that one day, but that's the real reason why I don't play this system much. I love the games that are on it. I love the graphics, but it's just these dang controllers. They are so horrible. Now back in the 80s, Wico sold a controller for the 5200, which was much better than this. It had the keypad on like a separate little box, and then it had basically like a Wico joystick that was analog, and it was self-centering, and it was just a great product. But on eBay now, those things go for atrocious prices. But just kind of wanted to show you guys this as well. So you have your 2 buttons here, your 2 buttons here, start, pause, reset, your analog stick, and then of course your telephone dial pad thing here. So, and then those controllers just plug in right here in the front, guys. So let me go ahead and get this thing set back up, and then we'll go ahead and power it on and do a little bit of gameplay.
Something's coming up the plumbing, poor Luigi's in a bind. Giant turtles out to get him, creepy crabs are right behind. Spider flies, cheaper shites, they're all coming out the pipes. Mario, where are you?
It's a
Atari Mario Brothers with Mario from Donkey Kong, his brother Luigi, and lots of crazy creatures. And it's twice the fun when two play at once, because you need all the help you can get. Mario, where are you? Mario Brothers, new from Atari.
Alright guys, so here is the Atari 5200 all hooked up. Let's go ahead and get her powered up here. As you guys can see, the red LED turns on. Now I do have one of these Atari Max flash cartridges here. Really good purchase if you guys want to have the whole entire 5200 collection on one cartridge. I'm more of a hardware guy as opposed to a software guy anyway. So I would rather have just the flash cart than just shelves and shelves of, you know, boxes of video games. I really don't enjoy that. I like my space, to tell you the truth. So here is the actual menu for that flash cart here. So we're gonna go ahead and go down to ROMs here. If this controller works, bear with me guys. These controllers are just crap. I cannot wait till I can find a good controller for my 5200. Alright, here we go. So it's reading that. Let's go ahead and go down to Centipede, because that's one of the original launch games. And we'll go ahead and launch that, and then we'll go into the actual video capture as well.
Here are some of the arcade games coming for the Atari 5200 Super System. Cartridges only the Atari Super System will play. And the Super System versions are the best versions of the great arcade hits you can play at home. The Atari 5200 Super Games. You can't play them anywhere else. Only on the Atari 5200 Super System.
Alright guys, so we come to the end of the video here where I give you kind of my thoughts and opinions about this system and some of my memories that I have as well. So way back in the good old 80s, I remember the only thing that I really remember was the Atari 2600 because we had that system, we were playing it, you know, I loved it. And then I started seeing these commercials for the Atari 5200 popping up and I asked my mom and dad, hey, can I get this for Christmas, for my birthday, that type of thing? And of course the answer was no, because I had a perfectly good working Atari at home that had the same Centipede and Defender and all these other games that we had on the Atari 2600. Now obviously my parents really didn't understand the difference between the graphic capabilities and other things of the system. So, and they couldn't really justify paying the $270 to buy another video game system that plays the same games. And I can kind of see their logic in it and why they didn't purchase it for us. Now, we had the 2600 until it died. And then we ended up getting an NES after that. But as far as the 5200 goes, I am a fan of the system. I love the system. I love the games on the system. I love the gameplay on the system. It's just a really good system. It's so big and so bulky, and it's just, it sits there and everybody looks at it and they see it, and it's like the centerpiece of your collection. Or back in the 80s it would have been the centerpiece of like your living room, or your living room table, or on top of your console TV, you know, that type of thing. It would have been like almost a piece of furniture, you know, and it's so futuristic and so sleek looking. But the one thing I cannot stand about the system, excuse me here, are these guys, these controllers. Oh my God, I have 4 of these things and none of them work. One I have that's connected to the system, the joystick kind of works. The other 3, the little plastic pieces that go between the potentiometers and the joystick itself, are all busted, so the joystick doesn't even work. This is the only one, I think this is the only one where all the buttons actually work, but the joystick doesn't. So it's just a crap controller. And honestly, guys, I think that is one of the main reasons why the system failed. And 2, because they released a system that wasn't backwards compatible to the 2600. It really wouldn't have took too much to put a couple extra chips on this thing to make it backwards compatible. And of course, Atari realized their failure at that and then released the adapter that would plug into it so you could play your 2600 games. But that thing was expensive too. I think it was like 50 or 60 bucks for it at the time when it released. And who's going to do that when you've already got an Atari 2600? So why would I want... It's one of those things, you know, guys. It's coulda, woulda, shoulda. But the system itself, like I said, is a great system. Now, for collectors out there, if you are a true video game collector, this is a system that you want to get. Simply because your collection is not complete without a 5200. However, if you're just the casual collector where you're just getting into it and you got like a Nintendo and maybe like a Sega or something like that, and maybe a 2600, and you're looking at buying another system, the 5200 really isn't the system for you until you start collecting a little bit more. Because they do have issues like the self-centering. Obviously, the joysticks don't self-center themselves, but there's an actual potentiometer inside where you can adjust so that the system is self-centered, because it gets out of whack too. There's just several other things about the system, the controllers, because you constantly got to mess with them. I'm going to buy one of those retrofitting kits with the gold contacts and stuff and see if that makes a difference. I don't know where I'm going to get those little plastic pieces that go to the potentiometers. Maybe somebody could 3D print them. I don't know. I don't know where I would get those to fix the rest of these controllers. Or maybe I'll just end up getting one of those old Wico controllers that are completely overpriced for like $200. No, not gonna happen. I would rather make myself a controller out of like a PlayStation controller and retrofit it to work with this thing than to buy something like that. So that might be a future project that might be coming up on the channel here. But anyway, guys, I just kind of wanted to, thank all you guys and all my subscribers as well. I've had a few more subscribers sub to my channel. And I just wanted to thank everybody that watches and subs. You guys are the ones that support this channel. And hopefully I'm bringing some of this retro goodness and some of this education about these old systems to you guys so that you know what's going on, how they work, how they were marketed, all that kind of stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have a great one. Peace out.